Hello, and welcome to another episode of Teaching Tuesdays. I'm Kristen Evans, the Education Coordinator for the Mission Aransas Reserve, and I just received the Teaching Tuesday pencil for my friends at the Nueces Delta Preserve, which means we're ready to start our next activity. We're talking about nature interviews today. It's a fun way for us to slow down and make some observations in our backyard, the local neighborhood, or even some beaches or parks we have near our homes. It's also a fun and interesting way for us to learn about these objects through observation. How do they get there? What are they? What do they look like? How big or small are they? We can investigate living objects like lizards, ants, or birds, and even non-living objects like shells, rocks, or sticks. Everything has a story to tell, and an interview is a great way to find out about that story. So let's get started. The first step in our interview process is to identify an object you want to know more about. Have you seen something in your backyard or in your neighborhood that you're curious about or want to know more about? I've thought of an object that I've seen every day for the past week as I've walked along the beach. I think I'm going to have to interview it. There's definitely a lot of questions I have. Do you have something that comes to mind when I talk about an object? It's important for us to think about objects that are safe to make observations with. Something that you can get a close enough look at, but you don't need to touch. And in fact, not touching your object is a great way for us to focus on what we see. The textures, colors, shapes, or designs of that object. All of that's really good information for us to look at. Also, you want to have an object that you can look at several times a day or maybe for several minutes at a time. In fact, some objects, if they move too much, like a bird or a lizard, you might have to seek it out a few times a day to get enough observations in. Taking a photo or a video of your object is also a great way to help you do your observations, especially if it moves a lot. So be ready to make some observations over a period of time with your object. So think about what object you have in mind. Here are some helpful hints to get you started with your observations. When you're looking at your object, think about where it's located, what type of habitat it lives in, and where it's situated in that habitat. Is it high up, down low, buried under something? Also, is it the only object like itself, or are there many objects just like it? You're also going to think about the detail of your object, its shape, size, color. You might even have the opportunity to measure your object and count how many things it has on it. Speckles, spines, petals, leaves. All of this is great information and can tell you a lot about your object. One way to focus your observations and to record your information is to use an I notice, I wonder chart. Under I notice, you can draw, sketch, or write down what you see. Be as detailed as you can. In the I wonder column, you might write down some questions you have. What are you wondering about? What do your observations make you think of? All of those things in the I wonder column might be able to turn into your interview questions. So you want to collect your thoughts while you're doing your observations. Now that we've wrapped up our observations, it's time to start generating our interview questions. We want to have questions that can be answered through the observations that we've made. All of the I notice observations that we had when we were looking at our object is how we're going to answer our questions. So we want to ask questions that can be answered through observation. And there's a lot of great ones we can think of, such as descriptive questions, like what are you covered with, fur or feathers? Other questions like how many things do you have on your body or your object? How many limbs, petals, or spikes? There's other questions that are related to measurement and counting, such as how long are you? Maybe you were able to take a measuring stick out with you when you did your observation. Those are good questions to use for your interview. Questions that might be difficult to answer through observation are related to thinking and feeling, such as, do you like living in that tree that you're in? Or are you scared of something? Those are hard questions for us to answer just by making an observation. They're hard questions to answer even after doing a little research in a book, through the internet, or even from an expert. But it's worth trying after you've done your interview. I can't wait to hear all about your interviews that you've conducted, to learn about the objects that you chose, some of the questions that you asked, and what you discovered. Be sure to share what you learned by commenting after this segment, and we'll share all of our nature interviews. It's easy to do them, it's fun to do them, and it's a great way to learn about the objects in your neighborhood, backyard, or local park. Thanks for joining us this Teaching Tuesday. We'll see you next time.